I realized that people who haven't had a CASA are, some of them are a lot worse off because this structure that she's been able to provide for me and help me whenever I call her and take me to go places when I didn't have my car and get stuff done has been really beneficial for me. A lot of people don't know how to advocate for themselves. It's a really hard skill to learn. I think I've been to 4 different elementary schools and then 4 different middle schools. I just kind of got used to bouncing around so much.
Children come into the foster care system, the court system, from situations where families are struggling with addiction, struggling with mental illness, and they're struggling to get through high school, and they're struggling to manage relationships, and they're struggling to deal with all the emotions that are part of adolescence and young adulthood.
Many are dealing with just the trauma of being in foster care.
My mom and dad were fighting really hard to not have their parental rights terminated, but my dad had his terminated when I was 13 and my mom had hers terminated when I think I was 11 or 12. My mom did a lot of drugs and I just told myself to just go play some video games, but that's basically all I did. I bounced around a lot. Went to 4 or 5 different foster homes, and then I went to a group home, came back to the same foster home, went to another group home, and I went to another group home after that. I wasn't the most malleable child.
Our first meeting was very interesting because before you meet with the child, you read through all their paperwork. And Josh had been through a lot. There was a lot that he was dealing with, and I was a little intimidated, to say the least.
It's hard to advocate for yourself when you're 14 or 15 because nobody takes you seriously because they all view you as a kid.
And I just asked him a few questions. I said, what do you like to read? He said, well, I just finished a biology textbook cover to cover. I said, really? He said, well, that's one of the books that was on the shelf. I could tell he was intelligent from the moment I met him.
I remember being really happy to have someone to talk to and advocate for me, especially since he was a lawyer, so she knows how to talk.
Then he asked me how I thought the world was created, and our conversations got more interesting and deeper from there, and I just thought, here's just a really neat, interesting kid.
I was on 3 or 4 different medications.
Early on, he had been on some medication that he just did not like the way he felt on it, and nobody was listening to him. And this was when I first took his case.
The group home I was in, I got bullied a lot. I was just angry all the time, and the Vyvanse wasn't helping because I was on a high dosage, and one of its side effects is increased aggression.
So the first thing we did was make sure that we talked to his therapist and his psychiatrist, and let's reevaluate this medication. And he wrote an impassioned letter about how badly he felt. It really struck me. It was something in his file that really just stood out. And I said, this is the first thing we're gonna do. And we did. We met with his psychiatrist and she reevaluated all his medications, and actually within 6 months he wasn't taking anything anymore.
That's one of the many things she's done for me. It really helps having an adult in your life that's on your side because they can vouch for you.
Where we come in as CASAs is another member of the team, another pair of eyes, and we work for the court. We work for bringing information that's relevant in the case. It's being involved with one child, one family, and it can be very taxing on a volunteer who's doing this because they really want to help someone. He
went through, if you can believe it, 4 high schools in 4 years because his situation changed where he was living, and I was worried for him. I did cry the day he graduated from Brunswick High School and was waving that diploma and had his letter from college that says he was going off to college. I couldn't have been more proud if it were my own kid. But just to see the joy on his face was wonderful. As much as I wanted to fix everything for him, I just knew the best thing I could do for him was just to help lead him in the right direction and let him do it himself and be proud of the fact that he could do it for himself.
I already landed my first career job as an IT specialist at Ulta Beauty, and that's been a blast ever since. I love the troubleshooting, the problem solving. It's so satisfying when you fix it. I don't know, I just love it.
I don't think I've ever seen him express any anger about his situation.
A lot of the bad things you hold against people aren't really worth it, and you should just let it go. I definitely have the power to change one life, or even more than that, which I would be perfectly happy with.
You should care about these kids because they're going to be a part of your community. They're going to be the ones that are checking you out at the grocery store or becoming a therapist later for your grandkids. These kids have ambitions, and if we don't help them reach their goals, we're not helping ourselves and our community.
He's taught me that you can always look at the bright side of something, that it doesn't have to be a negative, you don't have to dwell on the negative. It's just very encouraging to me to see a kid who could dwell on the negative just refuse to do that. Josh is one of many kids that are in that situation where just because of the situation that they are brought up in, they don't have access to as many things that our kids have. And Josh could easily have been a kid that just came over and swam in our pool one day. Now he is that kid.
Well, I'm glad I've helped her look at life more optimistically. Hey, I've changed a life already, right?